William Shakespeare, playwright, poet, actor. Born April 23rd, 1564, William Shakespeare would go on to create the most influential pieces of theater arts in the English language.
Shakespeare is vitally important to every single person on this planet. The English language is being reduced to emojis and acronyms, and it is a beautiful language. And Shakespeare reminds us of that in every phrase he writes. When kids read it in school, they get glossy-eyed and they miss that because Shakespeare wrote plays, not books. And so when they read them in class and they're struggling over words and they don't know what it means and they don't understand it, they miss that poetry and they miss that beauty. But when they see actors up on stage who've gone over those lines again and again and again and who have learned to understand the poetry, now I understand what that means.
If you go back 460 years, you find this guy who kind of created a whole new continuum of space-time to me. It provides a bridge, I guess is a better word than a link. You can go back and forth on it however you want and realize that the problems of the past are still the problems of the present. Most likely will be the problems of the future.
Having made many pieces that continue to influence our world today, William Shakespeare has been seen in many lights and by many companies. One such is Capitol Shakespeare.
Capitol Shakespeare is a performing arts organization here in Bismarck, and we do shows based on the works of William Shakespeare or people influenced by Shakespeare.
Capitol Shakespeare is a nonprofit focused on providing Shakespearean theater to our community free of charge so that people of all backgrounds, ages can experience Shakespeare.
And we do one performance in the summertime. That is our main stage show. That's our Shakespearean production for the year. 5-ish years ago, maybe, we started a second production or a second performance of an American classic. That's produced in February every year.
And we've done things like classes over the years and gone and taught at schools and things as well.
Founded in 2008, Capitol Shakespeare emerged from the idea of a woman named Crystal Reed, hoping to bring the art of Shakespearean theater to Bismarck, North Dakota.
So Capitol Shakespeare began when Crystal Reed, one of my very good friends, said to me, I want to bring an outdoor Shakespearean production to Bismarck. She was originally from Omaha, and they had live Shakespeare in the park. And so that was her goal and her dream, to bring that to Bismarck. So I said, okay. And I had some history because I had been a student of Dan Rogers at BSC, so I knew Dan, I knew his history with the Montana Shakespeare Company.
They brought out the idea of creating a summer Shakespeare program, as exists in many cities across the country, that would be outdoors and it would be free, so that anyone could come and get introduced to or continue to experience the power and beauty of Shakespeare and his language.
And I was coming home from living in New York and coming home to help take care of my dad. And he reached out to me. I had never directed before in my life, but I had been touring with a theater company that specialized in classical literature for kids. So we did Shakespeare and we did classic stories and tales for kindergartners up to seniors in high school.
Had a vision that she wanted to do free Shakespeare in Bismarck, North Dakota, and she pursued that. Unfortunately, we lost Crystal right before our second or third season, but I think her vision stays on.
Since its founding, Capitol Shakespeare has brought a wide range of productions to the Bismarck community.
Met up with Dan, connected the Crystal and Dan together. We brought in another friend of ours named Kendall Speeton Hansen to do more of the kind of the formation, the bookwork, if you will, the kind of the dotting of the I's and crossing the T's. Crystal and I were more on the creative side, bringing people together. So we had our first performance in 2008.
It has done productions every summer on the Capitol grounds since, and for free. The last 5 years, we've done productions at the Russell Reed Auditorium in the Heritage Center. Again, free productions. We've grown both in where our space is and our actors and our directors and our everything.
We started with a small stage and some curtains outside on the Capitol grounds, unbeknownst to us, in a kind of watershed area that a few times got kind of flooded. We did Twelfth Night, one of my favorite plays, and I got to play one of my favorite roles in it. And we used some of former BSC students, which was good, and we began to draw attention from the theater community.
And my first cutting, I really want to do that play again because my first cutting wasn't very good, and now I know how to cut Shakespeare. We learned very quickly afternoon performances outdoors are not a good idea. Stage floors get very hot. And then after that, we did Merchant of Venice, which is my favorite Shakespeare show. And then it was just one after another of great shows. I think some of my favorites after that were Macbeth was really fun. We did that one post-apocalyptic. And that was when we really started pulling out of time period. I think that was the first one that we did that. And we were a little nervous that people weren't going to go with it, but they loved it.
I'm obviously a little bit personally biased to the show that I just directed. So The Importance of Being Earnest is a very, very big show for me. I also was incredibly blessed to be given an opportunity to carry a lead role in The Winter's Tale. To have been in All My Sons as the first show in the winter performance, to be there to set the groundwork for the shows that were going to come after that in that time frame was really important to me to sort of give the opportunity to put that in place the way that had been put in place for me in the summers.
The first show I ever did, The Merchant of Venice, will always hold a special spot in my heart. Macbeth was one of my favorite acting experiences of my life. I've also directed some of my favorite productions, The Glass Menagerie and All My Sons, but also just seen really innovative interpretations of work, Much Ado About Nothing. Even this past summer's Love's Labour's Lost was so cool to see integrating modern technology with Shakespeare, and what would it have been like if people had cell phones on stage.
Midsummer is always going to hold a special place in my heart. I got to play Puck in that, so that I'm kind of biased, but that one had a lot of unique set pieces back when before we had just a unified set that moves from year to year, and we change out different little parts of it. We used to build a new set every year, and for that one we had a tree in the middle of the set that I could come out from under the stage and come out the tree, which was really fun to play around with.
Oh boy. I think Capitol Shakespeare has done a lot of really interesting work. I think what's really great about Capitol Shakespeare is that it doesn't tie itself down to like period specific work. Some of the work can be very physical, some of it can be very modern, some of it, it really takes the whole range. And that's what I love about an organization like this. It will take a chance and will reimagine Shakespeare.
Alongside its many performances and creative takes on classic literature, Capitol Shakespeare has brought together a community of people, each playing their own unique roles both on stage and off.
My favorite piece of doing this work is there are some of these folks that I only see in the summer. And when we walk in the door to auditions, we pick up with an immediate sense of family when we come back together. There are folks who are around the edges of rehearsals, folks who might be doing costumes or props or some of our photography or video work, who are in for very short periods of time. But that same sense of coming to a family occurs. They walk in the door and everybody responds in a way that lets everyone know that they're welcome.
There are so many great people. First of all, absolutely, without a doubt, working with Erin is like fabulous. Her creative ideas are out of this world. What I think is a boring scene, she turns into something when it physically gets on stage. It captivates you. Erin's husband, Justin, keeps us on spot with a budget, which when you're doing free stuff, you need to be on budget, when you're a nonprofit particularly. Everyone else in the board of directors, Emily, her insight to theater is fabulous too, her insight to people. Deb Carpenter, her ability to bring forth an audience, her ability to communicate with people and have the ideas and make them come to fruition. Derek Pick, who can build you about anything you want and be a little crazy on stage. Can't forget Dan Rogers. He was also one of the originators of the group, and just a fabulous director, a fabulous actor. There are so many actors out there that I just can't even recall all of them, but they've all been just fun to work with, and as the costumer, I get to work personally with every one of them, so that makes it really fun too.
Most of the people that have worked at Capitol Shakespeare, I've worked with and around and under at all, a lot of different various positions. And Erin, our artistic director, is a genius as far as I'm concerned, and really has a unified vision for every show she directs, and is always keen to keep the company moving forward and keeping it productive and keeping it cohesive as a whole. Dean's been my go-to guy if I've got questions on tech stuff that I don't know, and he's on the board as well. Everybody at Capitol Shakespeare has always felt uniquely like a home away from home for me. I started doing Capitol Shakespeare around, I think, 2011, whenever the year that we did Romeo and Juliet was my first time. And I've been a pretty steadfast part of it since then. Intentionally, I want to do this. I like doing this, and I love the people involved. It feels like a second family, another home. It's a very good community to be a part of, a very good company to be a part of.
I've learned so much from so many of the great people that I've worked with, from John Clemo, Don Rogers, Erin, Emily. They're diverse and yet the same. It's like when you go to college and you're with these people growing together as actors, and you don't get to see them in every show because you're working on something else, and you get to see them a couple shows later, and it's like, wow, you've grown so much. And I think that should be the goal of any community theater, is the growth of the performers, and that the audience enjoys it and hopefully learns something.
Together, these passionate artists have been working hard to further their mission. That mission being to bring high-quality theater to the public at no expenses.
The main goal and focus to bring high-quality theater to the public for free, with an emphasis in Shakespeare and classic literature. Whether that's American classics or others, we want to bring theater to everyone.
Capitol Shakespeare offers a cultural experience that's free. There are plenty of wonderful theater opportunities in Bismarck, from small theater groups to larger theater groups to children's theater groups. But the one thing that Capitol Shakespeare does is we offer it to everyone free of charge. You know, free will donations, of course, but I think it's important to offer people the opportunity to experience an artistic cultural event without worrying of can we afford it, or is it going to be worth it, or are we going to understand it, so will it be worth it? So we really, I think, break down a barrier there by saying, hey, try it out. It's really not going to cost you anything.
We try to give back a quality production. We try to give back something that helps people to understand Shakespeare. Shakespeare is all around us in some of the phrases that we say, words that we say. You probably have seen a movie that was based on a Shakespeare plot and didn't even know it. So coming back to that really, really kind of brings it all full circle. We're showing where the beginnings of what we consider a modern theater. It's meant to be seen. None of this was written down. Shakespeare is all is meant to be performed. It was actually performers who put together their lines to make the folios that we see on stage. So it is meant to be. So bringing that production, bringing that live theater to the residents.
Shakespeare is so much different in person when you see it performed live than when you read it in high school or college.
I think Capitol Shakespeare here in Bismarck is special just because of the sorts of people that it brings together from all the different arts organizations across the community and really this part of the state, that it really draws in a lot of different artists to get together to make theater.
Well, I guess one of the things that makes it special is that we do it free of charge. That we want anyone and everyone to have the opportunity to come and take part and experience the beauty and power of Shakespeare.
But I think what makes Capitol Shakespeare special is that it is a tight-knit community. You get people over and over again that you've seen at auditions, and you're like, hey, how's it going? You can actually go up and give somebody a hug because you know them. It's the sense of community in the theater that really kind of comes together in Capitol Shakespeare, because you're not competing for audience space, you're not competing for actors. Everybody can come together, do their best work, and enjoy it as they do.
Maintaining a connection to the actual work is critical, but giving it to people in ways that are consumable to a wide audience. If you strictly kept to meter and you strictly kept to characterization in every piece, you would lose parts of the public audience. By making that a central portion of the framework, that the material should be understandable, that it should be accessible to anyone who shows up, is critical to what we do.
With the noble goal of bringing the arts to all who wish to see them, it is very easy to see that Capitol Shakespeare has had an impact on Bismarck. But what kind of impact has it been? And furthermore, just how important is it for the community as a whole?
I think Capitol Shakespeare has made a big impact on the Bismarck Mandan community because it has brought a different form of entertainment and deepened the culture within our community.
I think more people have found out what different Shakespeare plays actually are and what they're about and things like that. Like, everybody knows Hamlet and Lear and all that stuff, but before I was with this company, I never knew what Love's Labour's Lost was or Merry Wives of Windsor. I had always heard of it, but I had no idea what it was about until I was a part of it. And some of the shows that I'd never heard of are some of the funniest ones that I've seen or been in.
I think we have given people who normally wouldn't have a chance to be on stage a chance to perform again. We have a lot of people who theater doesn't work during the schedules of other community theater projects in town, but the summer works for them, that are able to perform with us. We have a lot of people who were maybe afraid of doing Shakespeare, but once they got into it, have found a passion for it. And we've also been able to pull in a lot of people who were highly trained actors and had a passion for Shakespeare but hadn't been performing much around, but when they saw that there was Shakespeare being done again, they got involved.
Hundreds of people attend. It's so nice to see people who've stayed it and come back year after year, bring family who come in from out of town to experience a Shakespeare show, whether it be a comedy, a tragedy. It's just a really positive experience for, I think, people from our community to return to every summer.
I think Capitol Shakespeare is important because it brings something to this community that we just don't have. I think there's something important about doing classical literature and looking at classical literature and then performing it for a community that I don't see any other place having that sort of mission. So I think Capitol Shakespeare is really important for bringing classical literature to Bismarck audiences.
Capitol Shakespeare's approach to Shakespeare is finding ways for both trained and untrained actors to give performances that are understandable, that bring the words of Shakespeare to the local community.
Capitol Shakespeare provides a very important link to our humanity, to our souls. If you look back in time, you'll see things keep happening the same way over and over and over again. And without Capitol Shakespeare, there would be a void, not only in the summer, but in the experience of going from high school where you're reading a play and you're just like, oh, I don't understand it. But you can come and see it. And sometimes you get these looks in people's eyes where it's like, oh, wow, that's what it meant. And tying that together into the community hopefully brings more people an understanding of the past, present, future, and hopefully they want to come audition.
The arts community of any city is an essential, living, breathing, quality of life factor. Theater is an essential part of that. It's where we come together and take some time to be in a safe place to look at what it means to be human. No one has done that better in the English language than Shakespeare.
With over 30 pieces of Shakespearean plays to perform, and even more classical pieces available from other iconic writers, there is great potential for the future of Capitol Shakespeare. Its ability to bring the works of William Shakespeare to the stage in many unique and entertaining fashions, as well as how it brings people together, either on stage or in the audience. We can have high hopes for the days to come that this beautiful company of artists will be ready to bring us more and more incredible performances.
I hope in the future that Capitol Shakespeare continues to grow. I hope that we have some more permanent sense of home on the Capitol grounds or somewhere in the Bismarck community, wherever that may be. I hope that the community begins to grow in their attendance of our productions even more. There's still too many people who don't know that we exist, and that needs to change. There's so much more that I want us to do in the school systems across the state as well as in Bismarck, North Dakota. I think there's so much outreach that we could do before our shows even hit the stage to bring people to the stage. I want to see our midwinter shows grow as well. What we do there, the work that's done there, the quality of the work that's done there is just phenomenal. And I would love to see more people enjoying those performances.